Hello and welcome to this video here where we're going to be taking a look at how to solve a logic puzzle, and specifically in this case we're going to look at a three-variable logic puzzle. Three variables meaning that we have three things that we're trying to solve for, that we're trying to connect together. Now if you look at the answer box there on the right hand side, you'll notice that we're trying to connect a first name, a last name, and a homeroom for these teachers. Okay, so we're given five teachers? We're given five first names, five last names, and five homerooms, which are we want to try to connect and figure out who has each last name and what is their homeroom. So let's go through it. We'll go through step by step. I'll try to kind of pause and give suggestions at times, but this is just how we can solve a three-variable logic puzzle. The question here is that we want to match each teacher to their last name and room. Now, the first clue, we're given 6 clues by the way, the first clue is that Kim and Sandy are the only female teachers. Now, we can't just assume females based on names, but once we're told that, we can go with that. So we can just kind of put a little bit of a note in there that Kim and Sandy are females, telling us that Dave, Bill, and Tom are males, and that's something that we're going to do by assumption, okay, based on that. Now, what we can use by that, because these are teachers, they often use a pronoun ahead of time, so like a Mr. or Miss or Mrs. And so we can then understand which one is maybe a female or a male based on the clues that are given. Now, clue number 2 says that Mr. Reimer didn't get H8 and isn't named Tom. All right, so I'm going to connect a few things here. First of all, Reimer is not an H8, so I'm going to put an X with where the last name and the homeroom, Reimer and H8, match up. Now, his name also isn't Tom, so Tom and Reimer don't have a connection there. And lastly, we're told it's Mr. Reimer, so that tells us that it's got to be one of the males, so we can X off both Kim and Sandy as well, because they are not a part of that as well. All right, so that kind of gives us a few different things that we can use with that clue. Third clue, Tom didn't get L2. Well, then we can go to Tom and L2. There we go. So now we know that Tom did not get L2. And really, that's the only thing that we can take from there. All right, number 4. Ms. Funk tells us that it's a female there, right? Okay, so Ms. Funk got G5. So let's connect first of all. Funk and G5 are going to be connected. So then that means that Funk cannot have any other homeroom, and none of the other last names can have G5. So we're going to X off those values there and make sure that we don't have that. Now, we also know that it's Ms. Funk, which means that it's a female, so that Funk cannot be with Dave, Bill, or Tom. And because Ms. Funk got G5, okay, it tells us that Dave, Bill, and Tom also can't get G5. So we can X off those ones as well. All right, that kind of gives us that clue. Number 5, okay, hopefully in the next 2 we can get a few more X's in here, or check marks. Neither Sandy Hebert nor Tom got J4. All right, so Sandy Hebert, clear. It tells us that Sandy and Hebert are together, so we can connect that. Let's X off the rest of them so that clears it up. And did not get J4, so we're going to X off J4 for Sandy. We're going to X off J4 for Tom. And we can X off J4 for Hebert as well. And that way, again, we're eliminating more of the possibilities, so that'll make it hopefully a little bit easier to solve. All right. There we go. Now, the other thing that we can do from this here is that we have now eliminated 4 of the options for Funk as a last name. So the only one that is possible, it has to be Kim. So it has to be Kim Funk. And it also means that she's in G5, and we can then X off everything else that surrounds that. All right, okay. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff done with that one. We've got a few more check marks in. We're starting to make some connections. Last clue, Bill, who isn't Braesky. Okay, X off Braesky. There we go. Okay, Bill and Braesky are not together. Got H8. All right, so we can connect Bill to H8, meaning X off the rest of H8 and Bill. And then we are done with all of our clues. Okay, now we have to try to use some logical reasoning in order to solve for the final answer. Well, we want to try to look for rows or columns where there's only one remaining value, okay? And then we can make that connection. That's going to happen under the homeroom side and the first name. So J4 has 4 X's in it. The only one available is Dave. So it tells us that Dave has to be in J4. Again, Dave's not connected with the last name yet, so we can't connect the last name to the homeroom yet either. All right, now Tom has 4 spots kind of taken up. The only one available is C6, so Tom has to be in C6. And finally, Sandy has to be in L2. Now, because Sandy's in L2 and we know Sandy's last name is Hebert, we can also connect the Hebert name to L2 and clear off everything else there. All right, so we're getting a lot of stuff done here. Okay, a lot of stuff. Now, the other thing that we know is that Bill is in H8. Bill is not a Braesky, so Braesky cannot be in H8 either, meaning that now H8 only has one possible solution, and that is that it is with Penner. So once we know who the Penner is, well, we can do that. The thing is, what we do know is that H8 is connected with Bill. So that tells us that Bill has to be a Penner, and we can check mark that. Now, Dave Reimer is the only spot available for Reimer, and Tom Braesky is the only spot available for Braesky. We can also connect on the bottom there as well. So we know that Tom is in C6, and so therefore Braesky has to be C6. And finally, the last one available there is Reimer and J4, and we know that Dave is in J4. All right. So again, it's a process of elimination to try to find which values are going to work, which ones are not going to work, and how can we connect them. And with 3 variables, it adds more reasoning connections. So it just might take a little bit more work to try to figure them out. Now that we have our final answer, we know that Kim Funk is in G5. We know that Sandy Hebert is in L2. Dave Reimer is in J4. Bill Penner is in H8. And finally, Tom Braesky is in C6. There we go. We've got it all done. Well done on that one. I hope that has helped you with your solving. I hope that you have been able to figure out some ways of doing things and maybe some tips and tricks as to solving these types of puzzles. I think they're a ton of fun, and I hope that you are able to agree with that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the day.